Hello everyone and welcome back to Full House Sports here with myself Charlie for episode 5 I think it is now of Calcio Corner, where I talk all things Italian football. I've had a bit of a hiatus obviously with the international break. I will briefly touch on that because there was some things going off the pitch in Serie A, and also some things going on the pitch, the Italian national team, and then also get into the other things that are developing in Serie A after the last week's action before the international break and looking into the weekend. First things first, big news off the pitch in Serie A, which was the league rejected the idea of going back to an 18-team league, reducing the number from 20. Some had felt that it was a better move to make Serie A more competitive and more focused in Europe. The Italian team's more focused and help them with a less strenuous season. However, the head of Serie A has said that Serie A must rely on its own direction and not just look towards Europe and look towards other leagues. And he also cited key regional representation as the reason that the league didn't vote for reducing the numbers. I mean, it's an interesting point because I think there's been a real push between the big clubs in Italy in recent years, because we've seen some giants sort of fall by the wayside and go down and not come back up. You look at clubs like Bari, you look at Palermo, you look at other clubs as well that have gone down and haven't come back up. And it's been replaced by maybe smaller, more regional sides like Sassuolo, Cremonese, Lecce, Benevento in recent years, who have got an average attendance of under 15,000. But like I say, I think this is again it's a good move, I think, from Serie A, because it's important that the league focuses on itself. I think as someone who is a bit indifferent towards the whole Premier League model with the Premier League brand, and I don't particularly think it's been very good for English football. I think we're seeing that. I think it's important that Serie A does focus on itself rather than just looking at, what's Premier League doing? We'll go and do that. There has also been the big breaking news. I was going to do a separate video on it, but I just thought I'd summarise it now, that AC Milan and Como are going to play in Perth in Australia in February, I believe the date has been given, or March. And yeah, it's crazy, really it is. Andrea Rabiot and Mike Maignan have both come out and said that they're against the idea. There's been others as well who spoke out against the idea, but Serie A's chief executive essentially turned around and said, well, we're your employers, so what's your problem? It's a shame as a fan of football where football is going and what's happening with it. We are, certainly in England, being priced out. I think football fans in general are being priced out. And to have a game go halfway around the world is ridiculous. And again, it brings up this age-old argument of player welfare. We've got a World Cup at the end of this season when we're saying, oh, these teams are rubbish, this game's rubbish, this game's awful. Well, that's because you're asking the players to travel halfway around the world to play. It's an absolutely ridiculous notion. It shouldn't be allowed. I see the theory because I think they're looking at other leagues, certainly American leagues, and going, well, they're doing this and we're missing out on key capital. But you can't, it's not fair. It's not fair on fans. It's not practical. And again, it's just a sad move. It's a sad move that we're moving league games there now. We're moving league games to Australia. And then as well, let's say, and I actually think they will be, let's say Milan are in the title race. Come February or March, Milan are in the title race. It's them and Napoli, who I think it will be, because I think Milan will be up there because they haven't got Europe. Let's say it's Milan and Napoli up there in February, March. They go over to Perth. They have a massive journey. They lose a key fixture against Como because it's a weird sort of setup. They lose that. They then completely drop off a cliff and they drop out the Serie A title race. How do you explain that to fans? How do you explain, oh, by the way, yeah, sorry we dropped out the title race. Sorry our season capitulated. But, hey, look at all the capital we got from that game in Australia. Fans won't care. And players, I don't think, will care either. Another ridiculous move. The Italian national team qualified for the playoffs. They beat Israel quite comprehensively. There's a little bit of controversy around that game. I won't go into that because it feels like it's shoved down our throats these days, that sort of stuff. So I won't go into it. But Italy through to the playoffs, because didn't top the group. Norway topped the group. Haaland has guided them to the World Cup. There's talk of Serie A postponing fixtures, such as the desperation to see Italy back at a World Cup. Of course, they've missed out the last two. Again, they could end up playing Sweden in those playoffs, and Italian football fans won't need reminding of what happened the last time that took place. So, let's get into things all Serie A. I read a shocking stat today about Serie A that I could not get over, which was that since For 9 years, this is the first time in October 2025 that this international break has come around and there has not been a managerial sacking, which again shows the volatile nature of Serie A, but also shows maybe clubs are more willing to stick with managers. However, one manager who I do think may be skating on thin ice is Stefano Pioli at Fiorentina. They lost to Roma before the international break. They sit 17th, which is just above the relegation zone. Again, they've had a very transitional period in the summer. They've brought in players. Pioli's brought in his players that he wanted. Think of Piccoli being a big win. Edin Dzeko as well. And he's trying to implement the style of football that he wants to play. It was very bizarre, in my opinion, Palladino leaving anyway. I couldn't really get my head around it. There was obviously differences at boardroom level, I think, with Palladino and the board. Pioli is trying to do something and is struggling at the moment. And I'm sure Pioli will be thrilled to bits to have up against him on Sunday night, the big Sunday night fixture, his former club, the club he won the Scudetto with, AC Milan. Milan are in good form, although they did draw with Juventus before the international break, 0-0. But again, I don't think that's a bad result as far as Milan are concerned. I think they'll be happy with that. Feels like they have had a really tough run, Milan. They've had Juventus, Napoli and Bologna already this season. It's been kind of a murderer's row. They've now got Fiorentina. I think if Fiorentina lose this one, I can see Pioli lose this job. I'm going to call it now, especially if it's bad. If it is a humiliation, and I think Milan are more than capable of doing that to Fiorentina with the players they've got and the way they're playing under Max Allegri. The only thing that may play into Pioli's favour is Max Allegri teams don't tend to score loads and loads of goals. But I think he is skating on thin ice as far as his job is concerned. And I think a loss on Sunday, especially if results around them go other teams' way. For example, Verona are playing Pisa. If Verona beat Pisa, who are bottom and winless, and leapfrog Fiorentina, Fiorentina will be sitting in the relegation zone. And then I think panic stations will start to be pressed and potentially we will see our first managerial casualty of the Serie A season. As for Milan, as I mentioned, I did say from the start in this series that I did think that they would be title contenders. And that draw against Juventus, it was a pretty drab game. I didn't think it was the most entertaining. But it does secure their place firmly. I think that they are in that hunt. They are looking to be the pretenders to Napoli's crown. It's going to be, I think, an interesting one. Like I said, the whole thing around the club with them going to Australia. What happens there, I don't know. But there seems to be a lot of harmony in the squad. Like I said, they've not got the distraction of Europe. Fiorentina, for example, play on Sunday. They're on Thursday away at Rapid Vienna in the Conference League. Milan haven't got to worry about that. They can go for it. And I do think that's going to play in their favour in these big Sunday night clashes or Saturday evening clashes with teams who have got European interest, certainly in the early part of the season. Talking of Juventus, who played out that drab draw with Milan before the international break, they play Como on Sunday morning, which is going to be, I think, a really tough game for them going away to Como. Como are, themselves and Bologna have had a great start to the season. Como have only lost 1, 2 and drawn 3. Cesc Fabregas has got them playing a brilliant style of football, very possession focused, as you'd expect from a graduate of La Masia. There's not been a lot going on Planet Juventus, but there is something, again, off the field. It feels like there always is in Serie A, that UEFA are going to open an investigation into their alleged FFP breaches. Of course, it's been well known now, I think, for a few seasons that Juventus are in financial trouble a little bit. They've been relying quite really heavily on free transfers. Jonathan David, for example, in the summer. What this could mean, I don't know. Could it mean a transfer ban? There's been a few accusations thrown against Juventus. There's been a lot in the past thrown against them that they seem to get investigated and get away with it. But it does feel like there's a bit of an empire crumbling there. And I think with Juventus, we could either see a change in ownership or something different, maybe a transfer embargo placed on them by UEFA, especially if anything is found with these breaches that is really, really significant. Another fixture that has caught my eye is Atalanta-Lazio, which is taking place on Sunday evening, 5 o'clock kickoff. Lazio, what can be said of them? Well, inconsistent. That's the key word there. Inconsistent. 1 week they'll score 4 goals, the next they'll lose 1-0. The next week they'll lose 3 goals, then they'll lose 1-0. Last week it was 3-3 with Torino. They had the best of both worlds. They were scoring, but they were also conceding. I do think with Sarri it will click. I think there's just teething problems. I thought that they might have problems scoring goals. They're not. Their problem was letting them in. There were soft goals against Torino as well. So one of them at least was. And I think there just needs to be a bit of a moment, and maybe that will come on Sunday against Atalanta. Atalanta, they're grinding out wins. They're doing what even Europe sides do. They're not playing the way they played under Gasperini, but I don't think anyone ever expected them to be. But listen, they're still up there, which is an incredible achievement because no one ever thought that they would be. I was one of the doomsayers when Gasperini was when Gasperini left to Roma. I was one of the naysayers, said, well, that's it for this Atalanta period. That's them out. They'll be done in Europe. They had a fantastic comeback against Club Brugge, which was brilliant. It showed the character they've got. Things, like I say, are just nicely ticking along. But I do think if Lazio can get that win at the weekend over them, then potentially things might start to click for Maurizio Sarri. Now, Saturday evening is, for me, the key one because it involves the other club in Rome, not Lazio, but of course Roma, who beat Fiorentina just before the international break, and they are up against Inter at the Olimpico in what I think is an early season marker for, if Roma win this, I think that's them saying, look, we're in this title race, we're in the title picture, and if Inter win this, I think it will be huge for the psyche of this Christian Chivu side. They beat Cremonese before the international break 4-1. Yes, unfortunately, anyone who's watched this series before will know I was hoping Cremonese's undefeated streak would go on, but it didn't. They lost 4-1, and they were really, really entertaining. I thought there was glimpses of the old Inter there. Bonnie, what a find he is, by the way. Fantastic. I know Thuram seems to be having his fitness issues at the moment. Lautaro, there's been a real reliance on him in the last few seasons, which has meant he's been sometimes playing with knocks and playing with injuries, which hasn't been ideal for them, and in big games has meant at times he's been accused of going missing. Having a backup who's, I think, young and athletic and fit, because yes, they have always had the four strikers, whether that be Taremi or Arnautovic, whoever else, but having someone who's young and fit and athletic. Yes, there's been critics of Bonnie, certainly there was after the Derby d'Italia when he sort of threw himself on the floor in the Juventus fourth goal, but he was sensational against Cremonese and looks a fantastic find for them. It's a big game. It's a huge game. Roma Inter always is a huge game. But like I say, I think for Gasperini, it is really key. If they can get the win over Inter, it'll be a white-hot atmosphere at the Olimpico on Saturday night, then they are well in that title race. And like I keep saying, Napoli, they're starting to click, but there's still, I think, major teething problems there. As for Inter, if they win, I think, like I say, for Chivu, it's huge. It's a sense of, we are back. Yes, we've had the early season blips. We've had the moments where we've maybe not looked as good as what we did under Inzaghi. But if they can get the win over Roma, then things will change. Talking of Cremonese, interesting news this week that Jamie Vardy is going to have a documentary made about him. He did come off the bench against Inter. He was close to scoring. If you look at the back of the highlights, Cremonese, for their only goal at the San Siro, he was involved, I guess. He was there or thereabouts. But again, a doc series, which is good to get more eyes on the league, which is clearly what the league want. Big game down the bottom, like I mentioned when I talk about Fiorentina, is Pisa Verona. Pisa still winless, and of the three promoted sides, the one looking most likely to go down. While Sassuolo and Cremonese sit quite comfortably at the moment in mid-table, Pisa sits on 2 points. Verona 18th. That's a big game. I think both them teams may be down there come the end of the season. So these 6-pointers, as they're labelled in the football world, are so important at the start of the season, because they're the type of games that at the end of the season, these teams may be looking back on and saying, oh, thankfully we won that game. Lastly, champions Napoli travel away to Torino on Saturday evening. It's a 5 o'clock kickoff. Torino are another club, a bit like Fiorentina, who maybe unexpectedly is struggling. I thought when they appointed Marco Baroni, it was a great appointment. Obviously, former Lazio manager. I think he was harshly done by Lazio, harshly treated, but one win from their first 6 games, 2 draws and 3 defeats. They find themselves sitting 16th. And although I keep saying about Napoli that I don't think things are quite where they need to be, I do still expect them to win, which means that it will be 1 win in 7 for Baroni at the start of the season. As always, guys, with everything involved in the channel, thank you very much. Thank you to everyone, all my people who have subscribed today and always subscribing, so really appreciate it. Please give the video a like. Please comment. I love the engagement with people. And as always, have a great day. So thank you so much, and thank you for joining me on this journey. Have a great day. Thank you.